Hello, my beloved listeners. Today we have Whit telling her story of loss, failed transfer, only to get to the other side very quickly once she found the treatment that she needed and that worked for her. I hope you enjoy this episode. Let's go. Well, before we actually got to do the interview, my beloved Whit.
Hello.
Hi,
Anne.
She brought her baby in to see me, and I got to meet her husband for the first time in 2 years.
I know. How beautiful.
I know. I feel like I knew way too much about him, but
He said, please tell Anne that she's an inspiration to us.
Oh my God,
He just texted me that.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to say, please tell Anne not to talk about my sperm on her
that
podcast.
Too. I think we might have to get there, but that too. Please tell them what our dear boy was wearing.
Yes. Oh, yes. Sweet little Pete was wearing a produce onesie, which was inspired by the paleo diet that Whit followed.
I thought you'd like
100%. Well, thank you so much for coming to the jungle that we reconfigured because it was more aesthetically pleasing this way.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Ryan? Thank you, Ryan. That's why you're coming to. It's not a new studio, guys. It feels like it might be, but it's actually just plants that have been shifted in a more aesthetically set, designy capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Always beautiful in here.
It's also really warm.
It is warm. It feels like we're in the jungle.
So if you start sweating, the viewers should know.
Please know that's why.
It's not due to any type of...
Not the postpartum hormones.
No. It's actually that hot in here. Okay. So since you prepared for this, you knew this question was coming.
Yeah, the loaded question.
The loaded question of what is your fertility story and where do you want to begin?
So with that, our story started in July 2021, just a few weeks actually after our wedding. We had to delay our wedding from the fall of 2020 because of COVID. And so with that, my husband and I are both healthcare workers, and just the pandemic being a very busy time for us, we thought, okay, let's put family planning on hold. As you said, it seemed like I was a rather maternal woman, and I'd been wanting babies basically since I met my husband. At that point, it was 7 years prior. And I had stopped birth control. I started cycle monitoring. I started prenatals 3 years earlier. Like, I was ready. And so when he was ready, I wanted it yesterday. And those 9 months of delaying our wedding felt very long for me, which is just, I think that's a good place to start because it's so ironic how our story ended up unfolding. But yeah, so we got married in July 2021, and it felt like just an absolute miracle that we actually got pregnant our first month of trying on our honeymoon. And it just felt like such a beautiful, magical time as newlyweds. And it was like all our prayers had been answered, and it was just a really beautiful experience. I'm grateful for that experience, those first 7 weeks. And then in August, unfortunately, we had our first miscarriage when we were 7 weeks pregnant. And, miscarriage is tricky. I don't think you can fully comprehend it unless you've experienced it. You wake up every day while you're pregnant. For those who are trying and who are wanting the pregnancy, you talk to your belly. You make videos of you and your partner talking to your baby about future plans. You think of the nursery, and, we had talked about names, and I woke up the week before we miscarried learning that the chambers of the heart were forming. And there's just so much love and excitement that goes into something, and then it just ends just like that. So it was a really tricky time for us. But at the same time, we got pregnant, and it was pretty easy. Tubes, pipes clearly were working. The egg and sperm were meeting. We implanted. and the baby was growing. So we had a lot to be positive about, right? And so we took that, and we also knew that those first few months, correct me if I'm wrong, but those first few months after trying, after a miscarriage, you have a higher likelihood of conceiving. Is that true?
You know what? I actually have never found any literature to validate that.
Okay.
However, that I've heard that time and time again, and I do think there's something to it from the standpoint of the likelihood of your uterine lining being most uniform makes sense to me, because
Right.
it would fully have shed, and you would have had, more than likely, you would have had imaging to confirm that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think there is something to that. And also, typically, when you're pregnant, you're not having any alcohol, and you're being mindful of your caffeine intake, and
Yeah.
you're going to bed on time. So the likelihood of you having a more optimal system generally from the previous number of weeks or months
Right.
that you were pregnant
Yeah.
is probably going to impact you on a
Right. That's
positive
fair.
level.
Yeah. And so, we took those positives and we just tried to buckle down, so to speak, and try again. And we got pregnant again for a second time in October. This time, we made it just past 5 weeks gestation. And then again in January, the following, so 2022, we had a chemical pregnancy. So it was like 4.5 weeks. The line started getting like lighter.
So each
Um,
time was
And so each time was shorter and shorter, which really worried us. I was saying to my husband and later to our fertility doctor, like, I just feel like I'm rejecting these pregnancies. And that in itself was so hard to grapple with. Like, how, when my whole life I've thought my purpose was to be a mom, am I now the thing that seems to be like not allowing these pregnancies to grow? And so I just, I spiraled. I had an identity crisis. It was difficult.
people who typically have, I mean, this is giving away where we're going to end up leading to, but typically where people have a dysfunctional immune system and having it impact their reproductive potential.
Spoiler alert.
A spoiler alert. It's interesting, that thought process of maybe it's something to do with my body rejecting this pregnancy. It's interesting that is, I haven't had, if somebody mentions that to me now in clinic,
Yeah.
as even a passing thought, I'm like, is there anything else that you want to add to this intake? And they'll say, well, I do think there's something. Like, I feel like I had one woman who came in and she said, the furthest I've ever got with my pregnancy was when I was deathly ill with COVID.
Mm.
And I thought, ding, 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 that's interesting.
Mm.
When you were at your
body was
weakest.
stressed doing other stuff, and it allowed the pregnancy to grow a bit.
It's interesting that maybe that has something to do with this larger picture. And the inclination, that mother's intuition, if you will, something that you thought maybe you didn't have otherwise, was actually very strong,
right,
by even realizing that from the get-go.
Which we'll get into it, but I was taking that knowledge that I had at this point, and I was saying to myself, like, if I get to IVF, ICSI will help me, because if there's any like anti-sperm antibodies going on, ICSI is going to be the fix for me.
Right.
And so that's sort of where I took it, because I hadn't yet met you. And
so that's interesting. You thought the rejection was actually prior to.
Which doesn't really make sense looking back.
I could see that, though.
Yeah.
That is, you wouldn't think of an embryo as not self.
Yeah.
Whereas sperm is definitely not self.
That's right.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. And I felt unwell after we were trying, and like, maybe it was the implantation and I was just a sensitive person, but I can now say that I didn't experience this with my pregnancy, the one that happened.
Yes.
Where I really felt unwell in those first 2 weeks, like after implantation.
Yeah.
So anyways, who knows? We have a lot more to share, so we should
sorry, we should get going. Before Ryan does one of those, like,
Ryan's
roll it
like,
up, man.
Keep it going, guys.
Remember
Okay.
the coaching? Sorry.
So where were we? So we'd had now our third miscarriage. We realized there was a problem. Chemical pregnancy, our third loss. And so now it counted as recurrent pregnancy loss. So we reached out to our family doctor, got a referral to a downtown fertility clinic to do our initial workup.
Right.
Workup including blood work, sonohystogram, karyotyping, all came back relatively normal. I did have what they called, the string of pearls on ultrasound. So they said there's a bit of a PCO type appearance, but I didn't fit the bill for PCOS from my hormones and my clinical symptoms. And then my husband's sperm, his name is Michael. Mike's sperm, bless your heart. He had a normal sperm count. His motility was, they told us normal. It was at 30 of 40%. They said that's basically normal. I guess 40% is the cutoff of what you want.
Yes.
At a minimum.
I feel like they also, when you're going in for recurrent loss, motility doesn't matter.
Right.
They know that it's getting
there.
The egg.
And then DNA frag, his was 28%, and they told us that 25% was the cutoff, and that if we checked it tomorrow, it would likely be normal, and so it wasn't a problem.
Which is kind of infuriating because the World Health Organization deems 15% as the cutoff. It's interesting because Hannum, which incidentally wasn't your clinic, it's 22%. I'm like, where is this arbitrary number coming from?
Right.
And it's for a recurrent loss standpoint, DNA frag is really important. And now there's more attention around how you can impact it with frequent release, and how that can reduce the fragmentation by quite a lot. But there wasn't a ton of conversation around that until I'd say within the last year to 2 years.
Yeah.
So from the standpoint of, like, if we tested tomorrow and he had released the day before, yeah, there could have been an improvement. But there also couldn't have been, because if it had been something structural, the likelihood of the heat reducing would be slim to none. So I find it really interesting. And I actually feel like men, we do a huge disservice by not addressing their fertility concerns.
Yeah.
And not doing a ton of research into their fertility concerns, because they're seen as a very simple, patient, if you will, compared to the female patient.
Yeah.
But that's incorrect. And I think if we gave more attention to men, they actually want it.
I mean, he was asking, we asked during that interview, that appointment where we got our results, he was asking, like, what supplement should I be on? And I just confirmed last night, actually, that they had said, oh, the nurse will email you with what vitamins for you to start. And so we didn't get that email. So I had emailed the clinic, and they said, oh, just any standard, like, make sure it has zinc in it and selenium if you want. There was no dosing strategy. It was
a Brazil nut or two.
Yeah, Brazil nut. So then I had to look up what's the max Brazil nuts per day, because I don't want to overload this man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting because he was asking for some guidance on that. And well, we didn't even know it was an issue. We just wanted to optimize it.
Yeah.
We started the 3 cycles of letrozole with timed intercourse. Nothing to report with that. So then we moved into 3 cycles of IUI with letrozole. I had good juicy eggs come. There were like 2 at a time.
Yeah.
We were excited by it every month. And then nothing would come. So now it was strange, because right when we start fertility treatments, now we're not getting any positives or any chemicals.
Yes. So it's also part of the unsettling aspect of recurrent pregnancy loss care, because why would your care be the same as someone who had never had a positive pregnancy test?
That's right.
Doesn't make any sense.
We're just following the algorithm.
Exactly. Nobody has given any explanation as to why you had recurrent pregnancy loss. So therefore, how could you have a tailored treatment plan?
Yeah.
that would have any positive outcome.
If only I knew to come to you early on, that would have been, I would have really been a much better advocate for myself.
You shouldn't have had to have been.
Yeah,
to be
no,
honest.
I shouldn't have. And it's, it's sad sitting in those rooms, in those waiting rooms of clinics and just looking around and being like, how many of these people could just go see Anne and just have different outcomes, like truly.
But it's also, I've found it's particularly challenging for the healthcare workers that I treat, because in your line of work, you would never not be trying to understand why a patient was experiencing X, because otherwise, why would they be taking or doing Y?
That's right. So I'm a nurse practitioner in oncology. My husband works, he's a emergency medicine physician, an ER doctor, and the oncologists that I work with go to the ends of the earth for each of their patients, to the point where it's hard to watch because it impacts everybody's quality of life. Trying to get drugs approved, just going to the depths of looking to try to find what's a way we can get around this so that we can get this drug approved, so that we can get them into this trial. Let's email people in the States and try to find answers for these people. And then I was just does not feel like that
Doesn't
in the
feel like
fertility
medicine.
clinic. It just doesn't.
No. And especially, can you imagine trying to treat cancer without first knowing what type of cancer they had,
cancer,
what the root was? Like, for instance, one of my patients, she has breast cancer, and before any treatment started,
we have to know, is it ER/PR
Exactly.
positive? Is it HER2 positive? What grade is it? What stage is it? Is it in the lymph nodes? You have to know things.
you have a full picture.
You have a full picture before you touch it. So, yeah. So the dichotomy of going to work and then having an appointment midday on Zoom with my fertility doctor where the wrong chart was open, and I would have to say, I think maybe that wasn't me because these results don't make any sense to me. That happened. Another time, last time you told me that you would never do that for me. Are you sure you want to do that for me? Oh, no, you're right. I don't want to. And a third time, I had to remind the clinic that they calculated my date of transfer wrong, and it was 2 days earlier than they had booked me for. Things that really matter. I don't want to come across too angry, but it is frustrating, and it's hard to not just care about my own journey, but the journey of so many people out there. And I wonder, like, do I want to quit my job and become a nurse practitioner in a fertility clinic, or will I be able to make any change? Because I also met with other nurse practitioners in fertility clinics when I was getting second and third opinions, but their role is different, than me in oncology, where I work alongside the doc day in and day out. It feels a little bit different. And so I don't know how much change I'd be able to make.
The thing, though, is if people aren't angry, there won't be change.
That's right.
And the patients who are in it are too tired and too scared and vulnerable. And they feel as though if they upset their fertility doctor,
that's right,
they won't get good care.
Yeah. And now it's like, how do I look back on that journey? Like, can I just move forward,
Right.
now at this point?
Right.
And there's also other things that have happened, which I'm sure we'll get to. We better get to it now, or Ryan's going to be here till the sun goes down.
Ryan.
So after our third IUI was unsuccessful, we were then told it's time to start IVF. They would recommend IVF. And so we buckled down and did our first retrieval. Keep in mind, this was before I met you. I was on my little concoction of supplements that I started for myself. I had CoQ10 in there.
They were good.
Not bad.
Yeah.
You tweaked things a bit.
Just a bit.
And I was doing acupuncture every week at a different clinic.
Yeah. So
I won't get into the numbers yet because I really want to talk about them later to compare. But we ended up with 8 embryos, 4 of which were euploid. So December, the clinic was closed for Christmas, for the holidays. And so January was our first transfer. We did a modified natural cycle, and we had once the line fell, I started testing, continued testing, and we had 9 days of a darkening line, at which case everything stopped. So we had a chemical pregnancy with that transfer.
With a euploid.
Of a euploid.
Right.
Tried again in March. Another modified natural cycle, euploid embryo, and again, this time it was just negative.
So the
now
exact same protocol.
Exact same protocol. Yeah.
Right. That's super.
After that, they did say, well, because you had that PCO type picture, let's add in metformin and fragmentation.
Okay.
And I was behind the scenes doing CPP by myself. So
right.
the Claritin, Pepsid,
prednisone.
Prednisone.
Where'd you get your prednisone?
Oh,
just in the cupboard at home.
Yes.
I need more ER doctor.
It wasn't. It was my work. Okay, so at this point, we took a couple months off. I wanted to try and get active again and work on things. We had met you. We were starting with you. My supplements had changed, and I was feeling inspired by you and very hopeful. We were doing a mock trial, and so with that, we did the Emma, the Alice, and the ERA receptivity I pushed for, whether or not there's evidence there. And so that time it was a medicated cycle. So I'm on estrogen, progesterone, and then the Emma and Alice showed that my lactobacillus was 97%, no chronic endometritis pathogens, and my ERA was normal. So no changing to the timeline of transfer.
Right.
So we go into our next medicated cycle, which, and I'm on the fragment now and the metformin and all of your supplements. And the fertility doctor had told us that if this doesn't work, this is now a third failed embryo transfer of a euploid embryo. This is implantation failure. And my chances of carrying a successful pregnancy are now less than 5%. And that if this doesn't work, we will move. She would recommend surrogacy. So that was a lot of pressure on this transfer, but I tried to just be calm and have an open mind about it all. And I actually felt really good. I thought it worked. I felt so at peace, and it was just a great month. But we then were unsuccessful, no positives. And in looking back, all 3 of those lost embryos, all euploid, ended up being female. So because you can contact after the fact. And so they had said, well, let's do some further genetic testing to see if there's some reason that female embryos aren't working. Like, is there some carrier condition that you and your husband are both carrying that is causing something in the female? But that was all negative.
Right.
So
not even after karyotype.
That's right. It's further carrier because of I forget what the one is, but rather than PGT, it's PGTA or PGTG. There's a different one for carrier. So they were holding off on sending our embryos for testing, the next ones, to see once this carrier screening came back, if they wanted to then test for a further PGT type test.
Right.
Which they didn't because no conditions were found.
Right.
So at this point, now we've had our third embryo. So now I only have 1 embryo left. They're telling me that they recommend surrogacy. And so I have to, in my mind, I better do another retrieval because I'm not sure if you would have agreed. I should have asked you.
No, I, from the get-go, remember sitting in my...
You're right. Right in the get-go.
Initial...
And you
said... in the front lobby, and I said...
You better go to the GTA clinic.
You need to have your immune system tested.
Right. But there was a wait list. So
do with your embryos. Please, I beg thee.
Please just pump the brakes and get this figured out. That's right. But I couldn't pump the brakes because I needed a baby yesterday.
Yes.
And so I had reached out to that clinic, but I was waiting to be seen. I'd tried on Instagram to get in faster. No dice. So I was patiently waiting, and they had called me that my OHIP-funded IVF cycle was coming up. Do I want it? And if you don't accept it, you fall back on the wait list to wait for the whole till it comes up again.
Yes.
So we were like, well, we better get on it, because what we've been seeing in the surrogacy world is that if you only have one embryo, you're really not a good candidate. Like, nobody wants that pressure of one and done. So we went into our second retrieval cycle. I was also feeling really fit. I was on the supplements. I was eating the AIP diet.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, and also not thank you.
And so I got Mike to, he stopped the hot tub. He stopped biking. He stopped drinking. I was like, we need 3 months of solid sperm. Let's go. So our retrieval results, 24 eggs were retrieved compared to 21 the first time. 24 were mature. I was so pumped. Compared to 16 the first time. 20 fertilized compared to 12 the first time. So we had 20 fertilized. We did half ICSI this time and half traditional IVF, because I thought, well, let's see if taking IVF out of this, taking the lab out of this, if we just have the petri dish, will the sperm find its way into an egg? Like, I want to know if that's my problem, because then I will keep doing IVF, right?
Right.
So we did half ICSI, half IVF, traditional. And the same number of embryos grew to day 5 and day 6. So we ended up with 10 embryos compared to 8 the first time. And we only tested 6 of them. And all 6 were euploid compared to 4 out of 8 the first time. So now all 6 out of 6, but we also had 4 others that we just left untested.
Right.
So
you have a soccer team waiting.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're like, okay, surrogacy, we just have to find the right person, and this is going to be our answer. Now we've got great embryos. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't realize how hard surrogacy is.
Yes.
And, there are people telling us not to join agencies, saying do your independent, just like post your story on social media, which was hard for me because I, at that point, didn't want to share my story. Now here I am on a podcast.
Yeah.
But I guess I swallowed my pride, and here we are. So I had to make a whole account on social media and share my story and try to find a surrogate. And it's basically like you've gone back to the dating world, which I was like 10 years removed from.
Yeah.
Because people stop answering, people are very interested, but then they talk to their partners about it. And of course, understandably, they stop answering. It's a really hard.
I do think that that's like inexcusable. If you're going to tell somebody that you are interested in being a surrogate, how have you not had that conversation with your partner?
Yeah, there were many different sort of stories along the way. I think people asking for information, absolutely, go for it. You can't talk to your partner about it until you've really understood what we would ask of you. Once we get to the point where we're filling out the forms with the fertility clinic, I think we better have had that discussion with our partners. And also, what I made abundantly clear after the first person ended up, I don't know what a better term is than ghosting, but after the first person ended up ghosting.
Was this the one where you were checking the news?
No, that was the third one.
Right.
So the first one, I had then said with every kind of interview after that, please, if at any time you and your family decide this isn't right for you, like, of course we understand. You can't bring our child into the world for us.
Yes.
Unless it's right for everyone. And we understand that today it might be right, but next week it might not be. And that's okay, right? So I made that so clear.
Yeah.
And also decided to frequently check in. Not too much, because I don't want to be the overbearing person. It's a really hard world because you're trying to manage everybody's emotions and not sound as desperate as you are. But yeah, so The third time we were ghosted, I absolutely loved this woman, and I thought something seriously wrong must have happened to her. But she is okay. I haven't heard from her, but I know she's okay.
I remember
the fourth time,
checking the news.
The fourth time, we had actually submitted this lovely person's name into our fertility clinic. They had
Is
done
that my friend?
No,
Well, that was the second.
that was not one of the four, because
that
they
was-
weren't ghosted.
Oh,
They did
right.
not ghost me.
They didn't ghost. Okay.
This one, we had submitted the name. We had gone through legal, which is financially a big deal. We had paid for our first transfer cycle. We had started the first transfer cycle. We shouldn't even be here yet. We've got another big piece of my story to share, but I will get there. So
this is a really important piece, though, because I feel as though clinics, especially now, 10 years ago, this was not thrown in as casually as it is right now.
Mhm.
The number of patients I have who are at clinics that don't explore environment in their patients, and by that I mean the immune system and potential clotting factors, and or like endometritis, endometriosis, the environment of the patient. When they choose not to explore that, and instead they just say to the patient, you need a surrogate. It's said with such ease and so flippantly. And patients have been through so much at that point that they are like, okay. And they accept that as a solution, as if it is an easy solution.
I know.
And then when it is not only
I felt so
impossible,
relieved, because now the pressure's off me.
Off
like I
of
can
you.
stop breaking my own heart that I'm doing this to our child.
But then other people start breaking your heart.
Yes. And nobody's going to care as much as you. I mean, it's just the fact of the matter. Like,
but I think
nobody
this is
wants this as much. We are so desperate. And the fertility clinics aren't going to care as much, So let's get back to the fourth one. So we had started our first transfer cycle with her. She didn't live in Toronto. And so we were paying for the train to go to the clinic, stay overnight in a hotel, pay for the meals, train back home every single appointment. And her lining wasn't budging. So you can imagine how many appointments there were that were piling up.
Yeah.
A trip was planned. And so we had to then pay for her to get home from that trip by plane rather than by train. Like there's a lot of unforeseen costs in surrogacy, all to then have the cycle not work. Her lining didn't budge. And we never spoke again. I don't know what happened. I presume it was too much. I mean, it is a lot. I completely understand that you want to do IVF and then you start it and you're like, whoa, this is a lot. These injections are a lot. The medication is a lot. The side effects are a lot. The transportation, the uprooting of my family. Like, I get it. It's a lot. It's just too bad that couldn't have been said to us. So, yeah. That was it for us. That was our fourth and final surrogate. In the meantime, we got into that clinic in the GTA. We had our immune testing done. And it was found that, my natural killer cells were mildly elevated at 31.1. The cutoff was 30. So they said that really wasn't a big problem. The other blood work looked pretty good overall. The main issue was the LAD. So your
leukocyte antibodies.
Yes. So my leukocyte antibodies, they were at 7%.
And they should be over 40.
They should be over 40. So that was exciting.
I was thrilled.
Yeah, you were thrilled.
Thrilled. Went into my little room, did a little jig.
You did. Yeah. I saw it through the curtain. What's involved now is LIT treatment. And that's where they take your partner's blood, they spin it down, and they inject the white blood cells into your forearms. So intradermal, like a TB skin test or allergy testing. There were 5 injection spots on both arms.
It can be
Many.
anyone,
I think
though.
it's dependent on how much they get because they had a
But
full...
it could have also not have been Mike.
Right. Anyone. That's right.
Anyone.
Yes.
And I think that's especially important because I have a lot of patients who have partners who are of a very similar ethnic background.
Mm.
And in those scenarios, I have seen the LIT treatment not work as well.
Okay.
And at that point, they are at complete breakdown level of sadness because that was their last hope.
Yeah.
Only to then be buoyed back up by the donation of a friend who is a very different ethnic background, and they have good success.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's not a guarantee. Obviously, nothing is, but...
And it's also, it helps you understand that it's not the
partner
sperm that we're rejecting of the partner.
Yes. You're not actually allergic to...
I'm not allergic to...
your partner.
My husband.
That's
yes.
right.
The treatments are done 3 weeks apart. So there's 2 treatments that occur. And after my first treatment, the itchiness was on my forearms was so intense all night. I ended up with these welts that I could still see 3 months later when we were on vacation. And that night I had chills and body aches. So I was like, oh, what is happening? You sign all this consent of like, this is experimental, although it's been done thousands of times. Here's the whole slew of adverse effects. And yet we don't really know what other adverse events could occur.
Yes.
And I work in oncology with...
You're panicked.
I was panicked. I was like, why am I having chills? Why are my joints hurting? What's about to happen?
Yes.
Anyways, the second treatment, I had nothing. I hardly even had any itchiness on my forearms. No welts developed. And so then 3 weeks after that, they checked the blood work and my levels had gone to 85% from 7%.
That's amazing.
So we were so excited.
Yeah.
This was now, December now of 2023. So January last year, we start trying while we're also going through surrogacy. I mean, we were never not trying, let's be clear.
Right.
For 3 years.
Yes.
January, we're like pumped up. And then nothing happened. February, nothing happened. March, nothing happened. So you were still super pumped, but I was like, Anne, just drop it, okay?
I know. You were ready to murder me. But I gave you the same spiel. If I ever have the time, energy, and finances to do a large study on the psychology of patients who have gone through extensive fertility treatments and then start again post-immune therapy, that is because I have never seen more anxiety and depression than in patients who have done immune therapy and are now just trying.
Right. If only it was offered up front.
Because that's the issue, is you have run the race.
Yeah.
But the finish line has been moved.
Right. It's like
you're beyond.
When you're in IUI, you're like, okay, this sucks, but I still have IVF. Maybe donor eggs will be the problem. I can still, get some donor eggs. I can still do surrogacy. I can still this. I can still that. I still have that immune testing that I could maybe do.
Yes.
But now you're at the end and it's like, okay, now surrogacy isn't working for us. LIT treatment's been done. What else is there? Like, and I had signed up for the adoption course, but I'm reading all these tough stories about adoption. Like, just nothing seemed to be an answer for us. And everything just took so much time,
I know.
And we wanted it yesterday.
That was the thing. And I think that was the toughest part, and where I become very annoying for my patients with this conversation of, hey, like January is month 1. Like, I'm very sorry. January is month 1.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to erase what has gone on. But lo and behold.
So remember that 4th surrogate that ghosted us?
Yes.
So I was I was coming to the realization that we'd just been ghosted. I was in a pretty dark place. I mean, it's now August. And, lit treatment finished in December. We'd been trying 7 months now.
I was harassing you about your iron.
You were checking my tongue every appointment. It was not getting better.
Making you work out?
It was, what else can we do? I mean, I've tried everything. I've met with the doctor in Hamilton for an assessment of the endo. There was one little superficial endo, probably not a problem. I had been on anti-inflammatory stuff in the event that it was the problem. I just felt like
you were tapped out.
I was tapped out. And so we were laying in bed. I just couldn't get out of bed. My husband was working, bless his heart. And for about a solid week, I couldn't really get out of bed. And that's when I realized that my period was 4 days late. And we now, a year later, have a sweet Pete.
Sweet Pete!
And it's just so surreal still to this day. It happened. You were right.
I love and hate that all at once.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you met him today.
He's an angel.
He's just smiley.
He's so perfect.
And it's everything we ever wanted. It's funny because when people would tell me along the way, this is going to work for you. You're going to have a child. And I would say, it's okay. I don't want one child. Remember this? I'm like, I want your family, and I want 5. I want 6 kids. I don't want one child. And now, I mean, I'm not complete, but I could move on with my life with my beautiful boy.
It was so funny when you were in here just looking around the space, and I was in the lobby
terrified.
with your husband, and I was holding Pete, and I said to him, you really wanted to be here. You have no idea how badly your parents wanted you. And he smiled. And it was so funny.
He's heard it before. I say it to him every night.
It was the cutest little thing. And he is. I said, you're the most wanted little boy. And he
What a beautiful life to live, to know that you were the most wanted,
desired little creature.
Yeah.
Yeah. My God, I hope he doesn't mess up when he's a teenager.
It's okay. We love him no matter what.
Don't tell him that, because I feel like God knows what he'll get into. I
know he's never going to watch this podcast. My brother actually wrote us a children's book, and gave it to us in hospital the day that Peter was born. It's called Rainbow Wishes.
Oh my God.
I'm getting it published. I'm currently waiting on the ISBN number so nobody can copyright it. And it's beautiful. And I think I want to try and sell it. So a little plug. It's called Rainbow Wishes by Carson Gemmell. And it's the emotional journey of going through the emotional journey. Through the colors of the rainbow. So starts off with love and excitement, and then hope, and then it ends with the purple and the blue are faith and prayer. And it's just this beautiful book that ends with our little life. And so anybody going through miscarriage, I just think it's such a beautiful story. And he's our little life.
Yeah, I when it's out and ready to be sold, let us know, because we'll pop it on the pod.
Can you believe it? It was a beautiful surprise. So
yeah, that's the nicest gift I've ever heard.
And he illustrated it, and it's just so special.
He illustrated it.
Yeah.
This family. This is insane.
Yeah.
I once made my sister a card. It was a drawing of an armadillo. It had nothing to do with anything, and it had no significance.
I'm sure she loved it, though.
I don't think she really acknowledged it. She was more excited about the present. But
yeah.
My God.
Amazing.
Is there anything that you would want for other people who are in the space where they were lying in bed, couldn't get out of bed, feeling like there's no hope,
Mm-hmm.
is there anything that you would want for them to know?
I feel like a lot of people will agree that as hopeless as you feel, you still have hope. I really feel like it's just the strongest community of people. You know, you are hit down time and time again. You have to get up and try every month. You have to pee on that stick, check for LH surge. You have to try with your partner. We tried every single month that we weren't in IVF. And so I really feel like when people share with people that they are hopeless, I don't think it's true. I think we all have hope. And when people try to tell you that you were hopeless, it's not true. I know I looked at you and said, "Anne, it's not going to happen for me," but I just would tell you that.
I know.
Yeah. And I know you knew because, you know, I left one of your appointments. I'll get to that question, but I have to tell you, actually, this is answering it. Find Anne because she is an advocate and it makes the biggest difference in the journey. I really do feel, you know, when we had our surrogate just ghost us, the fertility clinic never reached out. They don't even know I have a child. I worked with them for 3 years and they have no idea what's happened to me. Anne would not let that happen. And when I had my third transfer and I had just met you, we didn't go way back at that point, and I didn't yet know how amazing you were and what a difference you make in the journey. And I came to the Summerhill Clinic. I had just found out the day before that the third transfer didn't work, and I was lying in those chairs and waiting for my turn, maybe a little long.
Hours. Like, to be honest, hours.
And I knew it wasn't
Non-exaggeration.
yet my turn, but you looked up and you saw me, and so I gave you a smile. And I tried to look back down, knowing, like, don't worry, I know it's not my turn yet. And next thing you know, you've come over to me, you're kneeling down, and you're holding my hands. And I was like, who? Not anybody in my fertility team has recognized the significance of this appointment, of this moment for me, this third transfer, and has been able to say, oh, she's going to know by the time I see her whether or not it worked. It was just incredible. And then for you to be behind in your clinic and to come over and make time for me, and you didn't even have to say anything, you just held my hands. I was like, who is this woman? She is so special. I hope your husband watches this because I want him to know
He
how
for sure
beautiful.
will not. He for sure will not.
But
this is all I need. This
yeah,
is sufficient.
And but also that day also stood out to me because I felt so helpless and hopeless. But yet I got in my car and I took a video sobbing. I had just been pooped on by a bird getting from your clinic to the car.
Lucky.
It's lucky, but it felt like
bad, like shitty.
Like
It felt
shitty.
shitty.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
And I started a video crying at the camera and I said, I'm going to meet you one day. And to me, that's just incredible because people tell you like, oh, you were so hopeless at that point. It's like, I wasn't. I shared with you that I was because I didn't want any pressure on me. And I was hopeless, but deep down, I knew I was going to get there just with a little help from Anne. So find Anne and keep that hope because it happens. I never thought a year ago that I would have a 3-month-old of my own that I carried, and I'm breastfeeding. And here it is. Here he is. You just met him.
He was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one's ever made me cry on my own show. Yeah. Yeah. I genuinely I was very convinced that you were, I think from the get-go, it's often I'll say, mostly to my husband, he has to hear me most of all, but I know what's going on with someone, and I'm not saying that in a cocky way. I
No,
genuinely feel like
you absolutely do. It's incredible.
there has been enough patterns, and it's not like some sort of mystic or psychic power. It's that enough times I've seen a scenario and recognized that if a patient has this, and this going on, then it's got to be this.
And why is it only you who
And
recognizes these patterns?
I don't know. Well, because, and not to get, into the conspiracy theory of the fertility world, but I don't make money
That's
when
right.
when you fail.
I didn't want to believe that it was like that either. And I know it's not like that in every clinic and with every physician or team.
I can say there's 2 physicians in the GTA that I genuinely trust. One of whom, actually 3, one of whom though just retired. He's not retiring, but he's stepping back and working on other things.
Yeah.
But there's only 2 in the GTA that I know they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And that sucks because it's systematically been each patient, and I'm watching behind the scenes, even clinics where I really trusted at least one person there.
Yeah. It
Watching them,
eventually they all get swallowed up.
and I don't understand it. I genuinely don't understand it, and not from a Pollyanna, I think everybody should be motivated only by, love and rainbows, but genuinely, this isn't just a job. These are people's lives. This isn't plastic surgery. This isn't optional. It's wild to me.
It is so wild that people, they feel as if they failed if a pregnancy occurred. Not all, but certain people I experienced. It felt like a failure to them if they got the person pregnant before IVF had started.
Yes.
Or before a second retrieval had started. That was the sense I got. That's shocking. And that's a bold statement, but
No, I think as soon as you make it a policy that you will not do immunotherapy,
unless you move your embryos, but now that you've moved your embryos, let me tell you, I actually don't think we should use those embryos so we're going to do the LIT treatment, but I don't want to use those embryos that you just paid to have moved from another clinic because
I went through so much to make
and made beautiful embryos.
Yeah.
And paid for and took medications for. We don't want to use those in this clinic because it's sort of like uprooting your garden. Would you really want to uproot tulips and plant them in another garden? Yes.
Yes.
We do it all the time. Have you seen Ann Matthews' studio?
I move constantly. Like a traveling circus.
No, she's here for good.
But really. Where will I be?
Stop. But yeah, that was told to me is why don't we do a third cycle, a third retrieval? But why? I have 6 euploid embryos plus 1 from my first retrieval. Why would we do a brand new cycle? And that's when it started to become clear to me that a lot of things are unfortunately financially driven.
Which, again, if this wasn't about building a family, then okay.
Right, fair enough.
No one's mad at the finance guy who makes money because he wants to make money and he's
Right.
very transparent about it.
Right.
But by playing the emotions and pressuring people using non-medical basis.
Yeah.
There's no literature to support so much of what's being done.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, there's science just being completely forgotten. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand how you can have children and go to work and you're trying to help other people have their children and you can't think to yourself, what would my life be like without my children?
Right.
Because I think that all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine my life without my children.
Me neither. And I get to say that now.
Exactly.
And
that's the strongest motivator. So when that becomes the motivator behind fertility, I think we'll move somewhere. I think the needle will move.
Yeah. And I just want to say one other thing is if you say to someone, the immune blood work, it's expensive. It might tell us nothing, but why don't we try it and see what the results show? And again, the treatment for it costs money and it might not work, but why don't we try it? Why do we not start there before recommending another $20,000 treatment of another retrieval? You know, it doesn't make sense. Clearly, these things are financially motivated, and that the goal for clinics aren't to show how many babies they've made. That's not their metric that they're proud of.
Yeah. No, it's not. My one patient, she's in venture capital, and she's going to come onto the podcast to discuss this further, but the clinics have to have meetings with the venture capitalists and discuss the leads that they have, the number of rounds that they have sold.
Yeah.
And when you are looking at it from a patient perspective of simply, I've gone to the doctor in the past, the doctor has helped me, it is irresponsible for somebody in a white coat to be selling you a procedure and telling you that is the only way.
Mm-hmm.
It's irresponsible.
Yeah.
And I think something, not to get into a huge amount of detail around this, but like prior to 1994, IVF was covered by OHIP, and it was part of our healthcare system generally.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said that on a number of occasions, and people every time are shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, so all of your friends who were born between like 1985 and 1994,
yeah,
they were created, if in terms of like IVF babies, they were created in a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And the motivation for the doctor was to help the woman to become
conceive.
pregnant.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was it. And if you were...
How different the world would be.
That's it. And even from a financial standpoint of the doctor is going to be more motivated to use less intervention.
To get you pregnant. They don't want to see you.
They don't want complications.
They don't want complications, and they don't want
multiple rounds
to see you 20 times. They want to see you maybe 3 times, get you out, and get the next person in. That would financially motivate them.
Yeah.
If it were a perfect world.
But we can go back to that. I'm not going to stop till we do.
Anyways, that's my story.
I love that. That was so good.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the platform to share it. I think it has helped me to feel that I've benefited the population by sharing my story, because you get to a point where like, okay, now what? Now I have my child, but what do I do with these years of heartache? You kind of want to run, and you just want to forget that any of it happened, but I just felt guilty not sharing my story. So thank you for giving me a way to do that.
I know that this was extremely nerve-wracking. I cannot tell you how many people will already know you before you've even given the full story, because the number of people in terms of like an oratory tradition that I have said, you're like Whit. You're like Whit. And she has a baby now.
Yeah.
And then I've given them a brief synopsis.
Yeah.
And they leave their appointments with a little bit more hope.
Yeah.
So now having your full story, especially highlighting how challenging it is to have a surrogate. And
how beautiful it is that people want to be a surrogate.
Incredibly beautiful. We need more people on the planet that are willing and wanting. But at the same time, I think it should give fertility clinics pause.
Yeah.
When saying it with such flippancy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not sure what the hardest chapter was, but I really think that it might have been surrogacy. We were at the end of the road and we needed someone to help us and we couldn't find that person. And it's just, where do you turn to next besides turning to Anne?
And on that note,
thank you, Anne.
she's got to run.